The Capitals' blue line is pretty banged up. Will Nick Jensen and Rasmus Sandin be able to help the Capitals Tuesday night? I'll discuss next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the very latest with Rasmus Sandin and Nick Jensen. What is one of the things that we know is the Capitals blue line is pretty banged up. And then with Vincent Iorio getting injured in the last game, there's a lot of question marks. Will Sandin and Jensen good to go on Tuesday? We'll talk about that a little bit later. We know what our thoughts are on the Capitals and how poorly they played on Sunday afternoon. But what do the players themselves, what did they think of their performance, and what do they think that they need to work on? We'll talk about that. And then a little bit later, we will talk about how Andrew Cristall gets his opportunity on the Hershey Bears. But just to get it going here, talking about the Caps blue line, one of the things that has been putting them in a bad position. I don't know if Rasmus Sandin and Nick Jensen were in the last game, if that would have helped the Capitals win the game. It definitely couldn't have hurt the situation, as the Capitals definitely struggled out on the ice. So there have been some call-ups on the blue line that have, for the most part, been pretty much plug and play. You've seen it. Dylan McElrath play a bigger role. Vincent Iorio step up and play a bigger role, not to mention TVR and those kind of players step up and play more minutes in their absence. But now something else has changed. One of the call-ups, Vincent Iorio, he also got injured. So it is definitely going to need to be an all-hands-on-deck situation. And if there's any chance that Rasmus Sandin and Nick Jensen are, able to play, absolutely put them in so the Capitals can, seal it down and pick up a big win in game number 2. The Capitals held an optional skate today in New Jersey. Today's practice was an excellent opportunity to check in on the status of injured blue liners Rasmus Sandin and Nick Jensen. Now, there have been players that have been plugged and played on the blue line, and none of them can really live up to what Rasmus Sandin has in the tank. He is an excellent puck mover, and he is a guy that's not just a defenseman. He also has an offensive flair that I'm grateful for the guys that stepped up and helped plug the hole in the lineup. But ultimately, the Capitals will be that much better with Rasmus Sandin and Nick Jensen in the lineup. But Sandin and Jensen appear to be heading in the right direction and could be in the lineup Tuesday night to take on the Rangers in game 2 of the playoffs. Both players are still in non-contact jerseys, but could shed them by Tuesday night. It is a fluid situation. Ultimately, we are hoping that they can be good to go on Tuesday night, because we saw how the Capitals struggled. The offense of the Rangers had their way with the Capitals, and there was very little pushback. That was just one aspect of what went wrong, and that is what we're talking about in this segment, is the defense and what needs to change. But to just take a look back on how these players got injured and how much time they've missed, Sandin has been out of the Caps lineup since April 7th, when he was injured in the game against the Senators after taking a hit up high by Parker Kelly. Jensen was injured in the game against the Lightning. Jensen smashed into the boards after being hit by Mikey Easymont. Jensen had to be stretchered off the ice in what was truly a scary situation. If you did watch that game, there was a lot of fear about what the status of him was. He wasn't moving. He was knocked out. There was some fear that, oh my gosh, was he paralyzed out on the ice there? A reckless move, I'm going to go ahead and say, by Mikey Easimont. And he was the guy that also injured Rasmus Sandin last summer. So he does have a history of, I'm going to go ahead and say, be a little bit reckless. And that is ultimately what was detrimental to Jensen and before with Rasmus Sandin. So again, we are just pulling for both of them and hoping that they can find a way to make it back into the lineup. Carberry had his thoughts on Jensen and Sandin, just depending on how it looks tomorrow. We'll evaluate them after morning skate tomorrow, and then we'll see where it goes tomorrow afternoon. Let's keep our fingers crossed, Capitals fans. Let's hope that they will be good to go to give the Capitals the absolute best chance at winning the game. Like I talked about, Capitals up-and-comer Vincent Iorio, who's had a cup of coffee on the big team a couple different times, I think has played rather well in a limited capacity. He has been kind of used sparingly, I'm going to go ahead and say, in his most recent call-up here. But I think that he has shown improvement, let's say, over last season. But to make things worse for the Caps, Vinny Iorio was injured Sunday against the Rangers after being hit by Alexis Lafreniere and crashing into the boards. It appears that Iorio sustained an upper body injury. Just as a guy that's guessing, not a guy that's a doctor, it looks like potentially it could have been a dislocated shoulder. In any event, I don't think we will see any more from Vinny this season, whether it is for the Capitals or down in Hershey. It looked that serious. But Carberry himself, he weighed in on the hit. He said it was borderline. He's a young player. I feel bad for him because he put himself in a bad spot. Really needs to move the puck quicker there, just get it out of his hands, and then he hangs on to it too long, and that is when Lafreniere wallops him. And it was that, one of those wincing moments where you're watching the game at home and he kind of just crawled off the ice out of the Zamboni door there. It was a difficult situation to watch. So what are the options for the Capitals if Jensen, Sandin, one or the other or both isn't good to go? It will be an excellent opportunity to see Lucas Johansson in the lineup. As we know that Ethan Bear is in the NHL's player assistance program. So that is one of the things that he is not going to be available. Otherwise, they do have options down in Hershey as well. Let's not get ahead of ourselves and think about who that's going to be. Ultimately, what we're hoping for is that Jensen and Sandin are good to go. And if not, Lucas Johansson can step up and fill the gap, because I do have a feeling that they will be back in the lineup soon. I'm just really, really hoping that it will be Tuesday evening so we can put a win in the win column for the Capitals. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we will talk about the players' reactions. We know what we thought about how the Capitals played. It was kind of a mess out on the ice, but what do the players themselves, what do they think about how they played? I'll discuss coming up. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even easier and faster. Prices on Game Time actually go down closer to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And no doubt there are some Nationals fans here, and no doubt you had hopes. You were like, I'm going to get tickets tonight, and then you didn't do it. Fear not. The tickets for the game are sometimes even cheaper the closer you get to first pitch. So fear not when you have friends like Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED ONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft is available now. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft available now on the Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So to say the Capitals struggled against the Rangers in game one would be an understatement. The Capitals simply got outworked in each and every way. The Rangers outshot them. They outchanced them. They outplayed them. Plain and simple. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. And if there is one good thing about the game, is that the game was as close as it was. If it wasn't for Charlie Lindgren standing on his head and making some true 10-bell saves, well, the score could have been that much worse. So hopefully the Capitals did take the time today and tomorrow to take a look at the film. How are they going to deploy countermeasures? How are they going to get better zone entries? How are they going to sustain more pressure on the Rangers? Good things happen when you crash the net. We all know that. That is what the Capitals need to do. Easier said than done. I get that, as the Rangers are pretty stout defensively. They don't make it easy for you to gain entry into the zone there, but that is ultimately what they're going to have to do. They've done it before. They'll do it again. And it's one of the things that, now that they have that first game under their belt, they ultimately know what to expect. But like I talked about, we know what we thought about the outcome of the game. What do the players think themselves? The Capitals were drastically outworked Sunday afternoon at MSG. That was glaringly apparent to those who watched the game. What did the players think of it themselves? Wilson said, "We dug ourselves a little bit of a hole out there." Yeah, a little bit of a hole. And I think that is kind of, sanding off the corners a little bit. I think it was an absolute mess. One of the things that I talked about is that they are going to have to up their physical game. Absolutely do whatever it takes to win the game. That's my reaction. And that was kind of resounded by Tom Wilson as well, as he thought that there was a physicality there, but they weren't really sure how it was going. It seems like the refs were calling a pretty tight game in the first period, but then in the second and third period, it's almost like they put the whistles in their pockets and the things changed. The Capitals need to adapt with how the game is being called. It should be consistent throughout. I get that, but it's ultimately humans on the ice making the calls, so it is apt to being flawed from time to time. The Rangers had the big advantage as they outshot the Capitals. They had 31 shots. The Capitals 21. I think we had our looks, John Carlson said, adding, we got the first part in the first period, a lot of good plays. With that said, we got to be a lot better. Have to be a lot better. And I'm glad that it's one of the situations where they didn't, fight it. They were like, no, we were in it. We didn't play that bad. It was glaringly apparent to everyone that it needs to be better. The thing that I'm a bit worried about is, do they have what it takes to overcome? If how they played in the regular season is any indicator, then I in fact think that they do. But watching the highlights back, it's going to be tough. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not going to sugarcoat it to say that, it is a done deal. They're going to win it in game number 2. It is going to be difficult, and the Capitals must be prepared. They have the pedigree. They have the history. They have Alex Ovechkin and TJ Oshie and these guys. They've got to find a way to get it done. And then some of the things that worked for them earlier in the season failed them in game 1. The power play for the Caps was an abysmal 0-4 for the night. Obviously, it wasn't good enough tonight. Wilson said, at this time of the year, it's huge. You've got to make a difference. The special team battles needs to shift our way if it can. It has to. It ultimately has to. And, I've talked about it a lot. I want to underline it here. I want to put it in bold font. They have to bring the physical game. That is my recipe for success to this team that is just on paper much, much better than them. That is what they need to do. So what does Spencer Carberry, the head coach of the team, think needs to be done? And what was his thoughts about the debacle on ice? entries were a massive issue. As everybody watched, head coach Spencer Carberry added, so we got to start there before we even talk about the end zone and sequences. How did they even get it into the Rangers side of the ice? How did they gain entry and keep it in the Rangers' end and maintain pressure? Well, what is one of the things that worked really well for the Rangers is something the Capitals could use defensively is when the Capitals did make that zone entry, they were pushed to the outside. So they had no real path for, any slot passes or passes up close, anything like that. The Rangers did a really good job keeping the Capitals pushed to the outside where they couldn't maintain pressure and get those grade A chances in. Now they've got to find a way to figure it out, as I don't think the Rangers have changed their play a whole lot during the season. I don't think they rewrote the playbook in the offseason. The teams did, in fact, find a way to beat the Rangers this last season. The Capitals need to watch footage of those teams that, in fact, did beat them and, use some of those measures to find a way to pick up the big win. But Alex Ovechkin is always the optimist. He is never the guy that is doom and gloom, and he definitely does not have a white flag anywhere on him. The team captain, Alex Ovechkin, had a level head about the game and had this assessment. He says, we understand it's a playoff game. Everybody has to play much better. Forget about this one and move forward. A very simple, simplistic, almost childish thought to the whole process. That didn't work. Let's plan for the next one. And I think that, that's the important attitude to take. It's not to get too caught up with the highs and the lows. It's just like it didn't work. Let's not think about it too much. Let's figure out what we need to do to play better. And then let's do it. I think that it's too easy to become self-loathing and to think that you're done, you're out of it. And if for the people that are old enough that are watching or listening to this, the Capitals had a similar scenario in 2018 when they won the Stanley Cup. I've talked about it on the show, and if you're an everydayer, you know what I'm talking about. That they thought there was no way they were going to get past Columbus, and then definitely no way they're going to get past Tampa, and now they're playing the Golden Knights. Well, it's good. It was good while it lasted. The Capitals did the unthinkable, and they took down a really, really good Golden Knights team, and they won the Stanley Cup. And I'm not going to say that this is going to be a rubber stamp carbon copy of 2018, but I'm just talking about that this team has faced adversity before, and not all the same players, but some of those players still remain, that they know how to get it done. Ovechkin, Wilson, Carlson, Oshie, those were the players that were there then. It was a much younger Tom Wilson back then, but they know how to get it done. And, a lot of that can be imparted to the younger guys. Maybe, you take a look at LaPierre and McMichael, and maybe they're, maybe a little bit more unsure. But what is one of the things that we know about those young players is they faced adversity and they won the Calder Cup last year. So I think that is something that the Capitals have in their back pocket, is that these young guys on the team were put through their paces last season and found a way to rise above, as they were the Calder Cup champions, and the new team this year is headed in that direction as well. So let's not despair, Capitals fans. It doesn't look good. A lot of things in life don't look good, and oftentimes you can find a way to overcome. And what is one of the things that we know for sure is that you knew who, so if it wasn't the Rangers, it was going to be, like Carolina, it was going to be Toronto, Boston. It's the best of the best is what's left. There is no Coyotes team left out there waiting. You're in the playoffs. You're playing one of the best. That's just the way it is. It just happens that the Capitals are playing the President's Trophy winning team. Get over it. This is what must be done in order to move on to the next round. Either you're up for the challenge or you're not, and then you can worry about tea time instead of worrying about who you're going to be playing in round number 2. All right, so coming up here, we'll talk about Andrew Cristall and how he's getting a really great opportunity, as he will be helping out the Hershey Bears and their push for the Calder Cup. Let's talk about him coming up. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. And what is one of the things that I know is that if you're watching, the Capitals play, or you're watching the Nationals play, or whoever playing, and say you're not that interested, say your team is playing very poor, kind of like the Capitals playing in the last game, open up the FanDuel app and put a little bit of money on the game. It makes watching the game that much more exciting. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. I am one of the guys that signed up for life insurance. Why? Well, because I have kids and I got a wife at home, and I want them to be prepared in the event that something happened to me. Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help you walk through it. Your work life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family needs. Policy Genius gives you the unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So if there's one player that I think the Capitals fans are chomping at the bit at seeing on the big team, pro hockey anyway, preferably the Capitals, but we'll get a good look at him wearing the chocolate jersey, is Andrew Cristall. Other than Ryan Leonard, he is the guy that I think a lot of Capitals fans really want to see. A prospect that has a tremendous upside, a guy that was picked a little bit later, ultimately because of his size, and there was, other underlying situations there. But he is one of the guys that a lot of Capitals fans get really excited to talk about. Like, this current crop of Capitals players is good, but wait till this next crop of players is ready to go. That is when the Capitals will be really good. What is one of the things that we know? That Ryan Leonard, I think he is the guy that most Capitals fans are looking to see. He will be joining Boston College again in the fall, but Andrew Cristall will get a chance to see him playing some pro postseason hockey. I'm pretty excited about it. I think as Capitals fans, you should as well. Andrew Cristall gets assigned to the Hershey Bears. With the Kelowna Rockets season over, the Bears will get a look at Andrew Cristall in a Bears jersey soon. Exciting. One of the things I know is regardless of what happens to the Capitals, the Bears are loaded, and that will be some must-see TV that Capitals fans you ultimately want to watch. The Rockets were eliminated by Prince George Cougars of the WHL. If there's one player that the Caps really want to get a look at other than Ryan Leonard, it's Andrew Cristall. The Capitals' 2023 second-round draft pick will get his first shot at postseason pro hockey. Just think about how the Hershey Bears played last season. Now imagine how much better they'll be with Andrew Cristall on the team. Something to be excited about. Andrew is coming off a successful campaign with the Rockets where he tallied 111 points, 40 goals, 71 assists in 62 games for the Rockets, and picked up an additional 15 points, 4 goals, 11 assists in 11 games. Quite the hockey player. And how much of that will translate to the Hershey Bears? I don't know in what regard that he'll play kind of a black ace situation, but in any event, if he does get some decent playing time, it will be a fun thing to watch. Andrew had a record-breaking season with Kelowna, putting up 100 points for the Rockets, a record that hadn't been broken since 2008. What a dynamic player. If that is not something as Capitals fans you don't get excited about, I don't know what will. The Hershey Bears are making another push for the Calder Cup after coming up clutch and winning the cup last season. Again, that was another Capitals team and within the organization that everyone counted out. There's no way that they're going to win it all. They did the unthinkable, and they won the Calder Cup. The Hershey Bears, a long history of winning Calder Cups. And let's add another one to the list this season. Why not? The Bears put a bow on their season Saturday night. The Bears won the Atlantic Division, and with that, they earned a first-round bye. The Bears won the Atlantic Division, and with the first-round bye, they have to wait and see who will end up being the lower seed. Cristall joined the Caps prospects Hakan Hanault and Patrick Thomas as Black Aces for the Hershey Bears. So excited, and like we were talking about there, he is going to be one of the Black Aces, so we don't know how much playing time that he's going to get. That team is really good as is. With the addition of those players, it is going to be quite a stunning team. I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to make a proclamation right now, right here. You can go ahead and mark this down that Dan said it, and it's not that bold of a take here, so brace yourself. But I think that the Hershey Bears will win the Calder Cup again this season. I really do think that they can do it just based on the play that I've seen on ice. Oftentimes it's just highlight packages as I'm covering this team for you guys 5 to 6 nights a week. But what I have seen from the Hershey Bears this year, very impressive. It seems like they are following in the same paths as they did last season, and I'm going to go ahead and anoint them the Calder Cup winners right now. They are that good. Let's see if that comes true. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's 24/7 streaming channel, available on the free Amazon Fire TV's channel app and on YouTube. And also, I cannot stop talking hockey. So if you have the time, I host a show once a week called the Capitals Minute Cast, available wherever you get your podcasts. Check it out. I sure would appreciate it. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.